Georgia Ann
Muldrow.
Muldrow versus Nina Simone.
See, what is this thing? First you got all the mandem, and now you're pitting the two queens.
That's just
against
pure
one
luck, by the way. I don't see gender. No, I'm joking. But,
right? And I'm like, oh, so we met actually at some point, but
Yeah.
like not consciously.
Yeah.
Turns out my man is RJ from Cool and the Gang.
huh?
When he said Jay Dilla,
Go on.
for me, it was like, quiet. And then you were like, yeah, because you've also...
No,
It's
because
like,
you know what?
no.
Okay, all right. I will let you into a little secret. What are you trying to expose me on thingy for?
Facts of inner aggression, years of deep depression, like being under possession, tormented by inner oppression, led to inner recession, completely numbed and deafened. So I had to put down the resin.
Welcome, beautiful people, to another episode of Acoustics Unfiltered. Today, we have a very, very special guest.
Very special.
Very excited about this guest. You will know him as Yahnw.
Yeah, I know.
He's a songwriter.
You got to put the accent on it, though.
Yahnw.
Yeah, I know.
Yahnw.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, respect. You can't just say, yeah,
The
no.
funny thing is, most people at first they don't quite get it.
Yeah.
You got like that. Mad. Anyway,
Yeah, no.
sorry, I'm into.
Sorry,
No,
missing
no,
the intro.
please.
Go on. So, go on. Yeah.
Okay, we have a very special guest,
Yahnw.
Yahnw. Songwriter, producer,
Tell you that clicking thing.
composer,
Yeah.
and engineer.
Boo.
And those are only a few of his accolades, but those are the main accolades, I should say. He considers himself a gift to be honoured, and I would actually agree with that. Definitely. His work is centred around spirituality, growth, and healing, which is actually beautiful because I think music should be all of those things. Although his foundations are rooted in hip hop and he's a free spirit, he's not bound by genres.
Interesting.
Yeah. And he views creativity, in particular music, as a way to explore and investigate the human experience, to share, support, and uplift. His aspiration is to be known as an artist who focuses on authenticity and is able to encourage others.
Oof, that's a lot. Can I ask a quick question, though? So all of that sounds amazing and like uplifting.
Yes.
The part I just want to just query is quite a
Queries already. So, okay, queries already, yeah?
to kind of clarify for the audience and
Okay,
that.
go on.
The part where you're saying you're a gift to be honoured.
Yes.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
So music is a gift to be honoured.
Okay.
Yeah. I believe in the Most High. And I believe that he created each of us individually and designed us to be in a specific way. And so whatever gifts, talents and passions were embedded within your DNA are your gifts.
Okay.
And, we can go into deeper things about different religions and how they perceive things. But actually, the most true way of honoring the Most High is to honor those gifts you were given.
I'm with you
Yes.
now.
And also, I did misspeak. I misspoke because it said creativity.
Yes.
Yeah.
His creativity is a gift to be honoured, and I
Yeah.
said he is a gift to
Yeah.
be honoured. But actually, he is a creative being, and he is something that the Most High has created. So therefore, he is also a gift to be honoured.
Okay, it might have been the way you did the bio, probably confused people.
Basically,
Even though
you're
you
saying I
read it.
confuse
Yeah, but
people.
anyway, whatever.
You're saying I confuse people, and you were just trying to clarify for everybody.
I actually nearly blushed because I am a gift to be honored. I like
Yeah,
that
that's what I
too,
think you were
in a
saying.
way.
That's wrong. I was just saying it like that. But yeah, I mean,
No, he
I don't
didn't
think-
say it,
yeah.
but I said it.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay, whoa. that doesn't match with the rest of the bio.
Right, yes.
Yeah, I mean, thinking this guy is guessing himself. But now we know. So we read it, misspoke. That's fine.
Yes.
But we cleared that part.
But it was a good misspeaking.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
We give thanks
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah, no. When we looked at we asked you to write up what your genre was, and I know you said that you don't have a specific, you're not led by a specific genre, but broadly speaking, the content you're putting out now, the gifts you're giving people, what is it currently centered around?
So as I said in my bio, like the root is hip hop.
Yeah.
That's you know, where everything started for me with music.
Yeah.
And so within most of my releases,
Yeah.
there's certainly a sense of hip hop that will still be heard.
Okay.
But for example, I have one project called the Meditation Suite, which is a suite of 10 compositions that my blessed sister did some vocals on, which has not a single beat on it.
All right.
So how is it hip hop then? And it's actual orchestral compositions.
Oh, raw.
Do you see that I then, but even within that, like, so Andre 3000, he did his flute album.
Yeah, he's dope.
And if, dope, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But like a lot of hip hop fans are always like, oh, there's no rap there.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, if you really listen to the tape, like you can hear the hip hop in it.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not in any obvious way. But so in that way, hip hop is the foundation, it's the root, it's the heartbeat of everything that I do in music.
Yeah.
Where that then takes me is completely different places.
And also, I guess you have to, define what hip hop means to different people.
Yeah.
Because and also it's based on the generation. So for some people, hip hop has that, you need that beat. You need somebody rapping, talking about a specific lifestyle or mindset. But original hip hop wasn't like that at all. So it's evolved anyway.
So we can get into that, right? So Curious One, who nowadays, right, one of the deep fathers of hip hop, you know, he talks about hip hop, small h. Small h is the music, right? But hip hop with capital H is the culture.
Yeah.
And so in that context, I would argue that hip hop is infused into everything I do because it's the culture of hip hop.
Yeah.
Musically, you might not be so obviously to hear it.
Yeah.
So
No, but I do get that. I didn't realize he'd said that about the capitals and the.
Well, it's because they took it to the United Nations to preserve the culture. They I don't know the right term, but they essentially made sure the United Nations noted down hip-hop as a cultural movement of importance. And within that, they made sure it was with capital H.
Crazy. Yeah. Do you think, like, obviously, as with all things, the culture has evolved and changed over time?
Hugely.
So, where do you sit on it? Is it a case of new school versus old school, or do you just, no matter where it takes you, you just follow it regardless?
That's interesting. My basis, again, my foundation is on what's called the true school, the old school, whatever. But that doesn't mean that I don't recognize the new school, or that I don't, you know, I had to come to a point, like when trap first started, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh no. I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
And then over the years, I'm like, this ain't going away.
No, it's not.
Okay, all right, let me study it. Let me learn it as a producer, right? As a beat maker. And so I studied it. And so now I can, you know, if I'm working with an artist as a producer and they're more on that trap or drill side, I understand how that works and I can create that for them. It's like the auto-tune thing. For the longest time, I was like, oh. But one of the artists I mentioned that we'll talk about maybe a bit later is Tom Waits. Yeah. Who very much uses his voice in very bizarre ways, right? Like he doesn't worry himself about classical training or anything like that. And then I thought, okay, let me think about auto-tune in that kind of creative manner. And that was my way into that. So I think it's so important, you know, it's so important to always know what's going on and to let it infuse what it is that you're doing. That doesn't mean that
you know the game. You know the game sort of thing.
Yeah. We got to be a student and a teacher, right?
Interesting.
Or a teacher and a student. It always goes both ways. I mean, I work a lot with youth, so.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get into that in a little bit, actually. So, do you think that your dual skill set, let's call it, whereby you're a producer as well, does that also kind of have an influence? Because it's almost like you're seeing it from the other side. You're not purely focused on just, you know, producing the art as an artist. You kind of have that bigger background, if that makes sense.
When I work with artists, it always helps, especially when I work with newer artists, right, the younger generations, because I'm like, I can talk to them about what it means to be in the studio for the first time. I can talk to them about their lyrics and be like, actually, yeah, this is great, but think about this bit, and you know, how do you structure it, and all of these things, right? It's the same thing with like being a composer. Like this idea of song structure or compositional structure. What does that mean? And kind of helping artists with all of those kind of ideas. As an artist myself, it can sometimes make it more difficult because there's so many different ways that you're thinking about it at all times. Which means that once you have to file a product, it certainly ends up being unique. But to get to that can be quite a complex journey.
Is it sometimes maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, to be honest. But is it kind of like almost like a hindrance because you're looking for that extra level of perfection?
So yes, and I think what's really important within that is to know what hat you're wearing at what point. If you have more than one skill set, right?
This is what I wanted to ask you, because with all the hats you wear, is it a case of dependent on the project, one hat takes the main focus, or does it depend on if it's your personal thing or whether you're there to support an artist or a producer or whomever? Like, which identity of yours is strongest?
Definitely that plays a role. If I'm working as an artist, I'm working as an artist. Now then, production is part of the artistry.
Exactly.
Right? As much as the lyric writing, as much as am I rapping, am I humming, am I singing, am I chanting, what is it? Do you know what I mean? All of those things. When I work as a producer, it helps to have the artist there because I can give some thoughts to the product, but I'm really there as a producer, you know. But there is a difference between a producer's not really going to help you with your lyrics. They might talk to you a bit about structure, but they're not going to talk to you about lyrics. And so I've got him there. If he needs to come out, he can quickly come in, take the hat.
But hold on. So say when you're wearing your artist hat, how do you dim down the producer voice in your head saying, no, do this, do it like this? Because I presume when you're an artist, you're almost, the rest of it's out of your control. You're just focusing on your art, right?
Presence.
What do you mean?
Having the presence to be aware of who's trying to come in. That's why meditation and contemplation and prayer are so important.
Bro, this is getting wild. This is getting deep. Out body experience. Like, he just takes his producer brain out and just puts it there. Wow.
Pretty much, though.
Is it?
Yeah,
Wow.
Because like also being an engineer, right? A mixing engineer. It's like when I'm making a beat, it's very tempting to be like, oh, I need to get that kick and that snare right straight away.
Yeah.
It's like I always say to the young ones.
Yeah.
Like, just find a kick and a snare that are kind of somewhere in the ballpoint and just work with that, because otherwise that creative juice, that energy is being used on getting something perfect when it's not time for that yet.
Yeah.
And so it's just having the presence to be aware, oh, engineers trying to come in.
Yeah.
Allow that. Let's go, you know.
That makes sense.
Whoa, that's crazy, man. Have you ever tried to produce?
Yeah, I have produced.
How do you find it?
I would say, because for me, my main personality is the singer. I feel less confident in that role, but also there are things that I want to technically do that I'm not necessarily able to.
Okay.
So, and then it depends on what medium I'm using. So I have produced on a music production program.
Yeah.
I have also, I play guitar, so then I compose on the guitar and stuff. And then because, like, I guess drum and that isn't necessarily my instrument, I always feel very much like, no, I need to get a hip hop head to do some the drums for me, because like where the hip hop has influenced everything musically, I've got that in the back of my mind as well. Not as strong as Yahnw, but it's still there. It's still beating away quietly with everything I do. So I tend to work with, oh gosh, this is not about me. Let's get back to you.
Well, I did ask you a question.
So you're good. Beautiful. It's an exchange, right?
No. Yeah. So well done. So obviously what we've just said now is the singing part is your main focus. But for you who can do both, if we basically tied you up now, put a gun to your head and said you could only pick one going forward, what would you do?
That's so interesting. So I got a degree in sonic arts and I got a master's in songwriting. And
wow.
Learning that side through there, I think I gained an understanding. That is so difficult.
Well, you got to, because we're going to bang you up.
So the idea, probably the music side, because I've truly learned musical language and the nuances of it.
Okay.
I think sometimes with word. So the other day I was watching this thing with a spiritual teacher, and it's about non-duality, right? And language straight away puts us in a place of duality to some extent. Yeah. Music doesn't.
Okay.
And so if it really came down to it, that's why Andre 3000 doing a flute album. Yeah. It's like, doesn't matter. He doesn't need to say anything. The peace is like peace and serenity is in the music. Yeah. The growth is in the music. The pain is in the music. It's all there. Okay. But it also leaves the space for your own interpretation to an extent that maybe words don't. I mean, then you can argue about poetry, right? They say that poetry is it's the language that cannot be expressed through words.
Yeah.
So really difficult. For the longest time, I would have said words,
Yeah.
rapping, singing, but nowadays maybe actually more the music side, the
But
composition.
so you split it into three, because I was just talking about music and words together combined as one versus production. But you've split it out and just said, forget about the words, you just want the music. Interesting.
Potentially, yeah.
Well, it makes sense because he's creating that music from its genesis, you know.
Yeah.
So, and that's different to, I would say, even to like just an artist, because you may create the music in terms of the melody or whatever, but you're still inspired by something outside of yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas the inspiration is most likely from within.
Okay. That's a nice little segue, inspiration. I'm going to use that and move on to seamlessly to the next point.
Nice.
So obviously you said that hip hop has been an inspiration. So let's go back to young you before you were called Yahnw. I don't know what you were called back then, but let's say
We're not going to talk about that today, neither.
let's say little Yahnw. So growing up, obviously, what was it like? What first drew you down this path to music? Was it you always listened to music at home with the old cassettes, and what happened?
Yeah,
the household, your parents, what?
So I had the blessing that the first 5 years of my life I traveled the world a lot.
Nice.
And not in a kind of like hotel to hotel, business center to business center, but like literally cultures, staying with a tribe on one of the smaller islands of Fiji for a month and a half, these kind of things. And I don't think at the time I noticed, but all that music that I would hear, people just playing around the campfire, around, those kind of things, like I had an effect. Then growing up, my brothers were really into metal and rock music.
Okay.
So 8-year-old me, who was super excited about music, first influence was that, right? So I got into like Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Nirvana, all of that.
Classic.
And then, and then when I got to like 11, 12, I'm a bit older, so hip-hop wasn't huge yet in Europe at that point, but it started to permeate. And I started hearing it. And I remember at some school thing, some older boys, they went into the hip hop, and so they got on stage, with their caps, still with the price tag on it, a little DJ, and MC. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah,
and that kind of it blew me away, and was like, I guess it was this idea of reframing.
Yeah,
right, reframing music. It could be something completely different, and that just it caught me. And as I've always loved words, like I started writing poetry when I was a little youth. It's like, oh, there's a connection here.
Oh wow. So it's almost like it caught fire. It caught fire. That point is the point. Would you say that's the point that it kind of cemented your love for music?
Yeah.
Or
So
at least your direction that you're going.
I mean, I think before that, I already. It's funny. I thought about this recently. I came up in therapy. I was like 8 years old when they ask you like what you want to do when you're older. And I was like, I want to do music.
Oh, is it?
Wow.
Yeah. And it's funny because at the time, actually, I was doing like athletics and stuff.
Yeah.
Like people were like, oh, you got a real champ. Like I'm a
Yeah.
runner, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, maybe you could get to the Olympics. And like consciously, that was kind of like my focus, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I wasn't like playing instruments yet or anything. But like when they asked me spontaneous in that moment, it just came out. I want to do music.
Wow.
Maybe it was fate then. 'Cause I don't think music was even a massive career choice back then for a lot of people.
No, definitely.
It was more the conventional route. Maybe a movie star, perhaps, but not really.
If I can segue us quickly there, which is really interesting because when as I got older, I got quite a lot into fine art as well.
Okay.
I was like, not so much painting, but using photography in a
You're doing
kind
it all.
of fine art way and stuff. And like, then I'm applying for universities, and I was really applying mainly for fine art stuff.
Okay.
And I had an interview at Goldsmiths.
Oof,
And my teachers got super excited. I was the first student in like 15, 20 years to get an interview at Goldsmiths.
Yeah.
Put it short, I messed up the whole interview.
Oh, no.
Get back to the train station to catch my train back to where I'm going. Just miss it by a couple of minutes. Really frustrated. Don't have a train for another hour or so.
Boy.
Wait around. Get so lost in my book that I nearly missed the next train, right? But just about get on it.
Yeah.
But the train is full. I'm walking through 5 carriages, not a single seat anywhere.
Yeah.
And I walk into the 5th carriage, and like you got the toilets and then you got the table, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, there's 2 seats free. I come around the corner, I see one man sitting that side.
Yeah.
I'm like, anybody sitting here? It's like, no. Trying to keep it short. Basically, turns out we get into conversation later on. because he talked about somewhere where I'd lived, a different country.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
He's just come from this country, and I'm like,
Okay.
oh wow, cool, and we get into conversation. Realized that he's a soul R&B singer.
Oh, damn.
Who would play with my friend's dad, who was like a
Oh,
pianist, right?
wow.
And I'm like, oh, so we met actually at some point, but
Yeah.
like not consciously.
Yeah.
Turns out my man is RJ from Kool and the Gang.
Huh?
Right, and we spent the next 3 hours on this train
Wow.
talking about life, and I show him some of my music, and I show him
Yeah.
some of my art and all of that. And just before I get off the train, one stop before I go to the toilet, I come back, and my man does that. You know, I'm impressionable at this point, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he's the 6'2" guy with a big New York drawl, whatever. Like leans over, and he's like, you know, I've been telling you about my life of sex, drugs, and rock and
Yeah.
roll, but like I also told you I found God.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I know you don't really at that stage in my life, right?
Yeah,
I wasn't sure about all of these things.
Yeah.
And he's like, I know you honestly believe,
Yeah.
but while you're in the toilet, God gave me a message for you.
No.
It's like, you can do the fine art thing if you want, because you're very good at it,
Yeah.
but it's more like a drug. And you'll probably get successful and probably make money, but really what you're meant to do is the music and the words.
Oh, raw.
That's your path.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's like fate.
Yeah.
Because if you'd done well in that interview, that probably wouldn't have happened.
Right. And if I hadn't missed that train,
Yeah.
right? And if I hadn't not noticed that my train was already there, and
Yeah.
I like only jumped on at last minute,
Yeah.
maybe in the first carriage there would have been a seat. Yeah, it very much. It felt a very distant moment, which is one of the reasons why, in my ups and downs of my musical career, under
Yeah.
different names, you know, I've had some successes, but I've also had the downs, right?
Yeah.
I've always been like, one day, he said, my music will be important.
Yeah.
I don't know when that is.
Yeah.
That could be when I'm 80.
Yeah.
You know, Quincy Jones didn't make big moves until he was in his 50s.
Yeah.
You know, it could be when I'm dead. You know what I'm saying? But like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think for me personally, that would give me a lot of comfort,
Yeah.
knowing that I'm doing what I believe I'm supposed to be doing.
Yes.
Kind of gives you some sort of strength. Again, I'm putting words in your mouth, so you can anytime jump in and tell me the truth. But yeah,
It's gone up and down with it.
Mm.
So I think one thing that I had to remember is that my man said one day,
yeah,
because there was a point in my career where I'm like, I'd gotten to a certain stage of touring Europe and things like that, and I'm like, okay, next step, and the next step didn't come, and then actually it just completely went back down to the absolute grassroots, and like a certain bitterness evolved inside me. 'Cause I'm like, but I got told this is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I had to remind myself years later. One day it'll be important, but doesn't mean that's not up to me. That again is up to the Most High.
Yeah.
You know.
Now that can be that kind of internal pressure, stroke, impatience can
Indeed.
kind of derail you because you feel like it's ordained. But obviously, life is long for us. Well, it's not really long, but it is for us as humans.
It feels like time, yes.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, I'm expecting it to happen X amount of time, and in between all this is happening, you're going up and down, you're living life. And then sometimes some people, if they're not strong enough, they can lose purpose and lose their way.
Yeah.
So well done, continuing.
Thank you. Well, I don't think I was given a choice. I think one way or the other, it found its way back into my life. I did try at one point to give it up when I had my daughter.
Yeah.
I kind of like just put it to the side. I still had a little setup, but I didn't really use it for several years.
Yeah.
But the pull is just too strong.
Yeah.
It's the calling, right? It's the purpose.
Okay. Well, I mean, now we've given them a taster. We should probably let them hear what it's all about.
All right.
What's the first track?
The first track is called My Way. It's off an EP called Lo-Fi Soul, which I released late last year. Soul being savior of universal life. And yeah, this is a song about really my personal healing journey, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oof. All right, looking forward to it.
Let's see. Being present in the present is the present that is presence. Space and consciousness are our essence. If you deep it, everything is either a blessing or a lesson. And I've had my time of indiscretions, acting like an adolescent. Facts of inner aggression, years of deep depression, like being under possession, tormented by inner oppression, led to inner recession, completely numbed and deafened. So I had to put down the resin. Allowing to surface what happened, drowned by suppression. Moving from hell to heaven, I asked for forgiveness during my confessions. Now it's about growth, love, and being pleasant. The divine can't be lessened, soul caressing, glowing like fluorescence, flowing with the universe's procession. Using my God-given talent of expression, sharing delicatessens ×7, learning my self-worth with no further concessions. Finding peace, moving forward, that's called progression. We are now in session.
I'm just finding my way, my way.
Let's go.
So every day we make. I'm just finding my way, my way.
Ooh, that was deep, man. That was some personal stuff going on in there, man.
Yes,
Like
sir.
a journey.
Yes, sir.
That's it. That for us. Then, what was all that about, basically? Yeah.
We all have our hardships in life.
Mm.
We all have traumas that we do most of the time a very good job at avoiding, which actually shape who we are and the way that we deal with the outer world.
Mm.
And, you know, I think I'd like to think that I've always been a person who works from the heart,
Mm.
who works with love. But that doesn't mean that certain traumas haven't also caused certain thought patterns, behavioral patterns, emotional patterns,
Mm.
which also meant that I would lash out at myself and others,
Yeah.
and I would stand in my own way a lot. And so some years ago, some stuff happened, and it was in some ways a wake-up call. And, you know, I tried out therapy in the past, but I think my ego always got in the way of that. So
Yeah,
I
that's
did the
hard.
job.
Get out of your own way, sort of thing.
Right. And so now for, several years I've been on this journey of really facing myself, no matter what that means, you know. And so I'm happy to admit that over the last few years I've probably shed more tears than I did in over a decade before that. But it's leading to a certain self-growth
Yeah.
and a certain understanding of myself. And it's once you recognize traumas and the patterns they've caused, you have to, again, presence.
Yeah.
That's why I say being present in the present is the present that is presence, right?
Yeah.
And we can come back to it relates back to my name as well. But it's only through presence that you can change anything.
Mm.
Because as long as we run away from things, as long as we hide from things, as long as we bury them, sweep them under the rug, you're not going to change it. And so the same cycles keep repeating. You're stuck on this roundabout of life rather than the highway of life.
Mm. But then how do you then, it's going to be difficult for anybody really to fight themselves, because the ego, whatever we want to call it, the you that's standing in your way of your own progress, that voice is normally quite loud. And it takes a big person to tell yourself to shut up, sort of thing. And like, listen, we need to sort this out together. So how have you started to accomplish that? What were the steps that you took?
So earlier when I talked of presence, I talked about the importance of meditation, contemplation, and prayer. And it is through those things.
Okay.
It's as Eckhart Tolle puts it, the ego will talk to you all day, every day, and take over your life.
Yeah.
And like I like to say to youngers, I'm like, are you controlling your mind, or is your mind controlling you?
Yeah.
And it is about that, right?
Yeah.
But it takes hard work.
No, it's
Yeah?
hard.
And it's like going to the gym.
Yeah.
The moment you stop,
Yeah.
Yeah.
come back in.
Yeah.
Start finding a way to creep back in.
Yeah.
And it's about it's about that constant working on it, you know.
It's not easy. You know what I always try to do? I don't always achieve it, to be honest. But sometimes because obviously we kind of know, everybody knows their faults, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Most people know some of their faults,
Yeah.
even if they don't want to admit it. But sometimes I kind of challenge myself as to the motivations of why I'm doing something. So sometimes I innately want to kick off with somebody. That's fine, but are my motivations pure? Do I need to? That sort of thing. Or is it my ego telling me to do this because I think I'm this and I'm that? And sometimes when I challenge myself, I can correct my behavior. Not always.
Right.
And sometimes even when I do know, this is not the way, the ego just says, I just do it anyway. And then you just do it.
Of course.
But
It-
yeah. Go on.
It's a journey, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's so important to also have grace. It's so easy. It's just actually another trick of the ego is to beat yourself up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to give yourself grace. It's
Yeah.
it's like the tune. One step forward, two step backward.
No, you're right.
In a Babylon, right?
Yeah.
Like this, we are programmed by the society we live in, by
Yeah.
Babylon,
Yeah.
to be that,
Yeah.
to be that ego,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be to be all of those things. So if you're programmed that way,
Yeah.
you're battling that already. So when you make mistakes, when you don't get it right, on that journey where you make progress and then you do take a step back, don't beat yourself up for it.
Yeah.
Give yourself grace.
Yeah. I mean, I think humility is key, and sometimes I think people misjudge what humility means. It doesn't mean that you know, like you say, you don't give yourself grace. It doesn't that you bow to all others and that. But there's a certain level of humility where you can understand that, you know, you didn't quite do as well as you could have done, and that's okay. Or at this point of time, person A and person B is further ahead in their journey, and that's also okay.
Yeah.
I was watching last night. I was watching a conversation between the Archbishop Desmond Tutu and the Holiness the Dalai Lama.
Okay.
You can find it on the BBC. It's on there.
Oh, that must be a deep conversation, right?
Very, very, but also very mischievous. They're both mischievous little characters. It's
Yeah, they
beautiful.
are.
It's so full of joy, right?
Yeah.
But at one point, you know, Archbishop Tutu talks about the idea of we are masterpieces. We are made in perfection, but we are masterpieces in the making.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, this idea of grace, the whole idea behind it is, it is a journey. There is no destination, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because also, like what you realize with going to therapy is like you can keep digging and digging. You probably always find stuff.
Yeah.
100%.
You know what I mean? But it's also recognizing, no, it's a journey, it's a progress,
Yeah.
and that's what it's about. It's not about arriving anywhere as such.
And it's also, I mean, I think personally, you can talk all day long, like you say, but at some point you have to take some action. So whatever you found out or discovered, the next steps is to actually implement it. Otherwise, all you're doing is just going over old ground, and it's great and that. But what's the next step? At some point, you need to take action to correct those behaviours, whatever.
And let it be so.
Yeah, which is not always the case. I was going to say as well. So you mentioned way back when about working with the youth. So I presume you try to impart this wisdom onto the youth. How do you go about that?
We try.
And what are the challenges that you find?
Most important is to recognize that all you can ever do is plant a seed. And then that seed must be nourished by the person in whom you planted that seed. If I try to force or push thoughts, ideas onto someone, well, especially if they're not straight away open to it, their defenses are just going to come up further.
Yeah.
So it's just about planting seeds. It's just about sharing and being like, look, you got to find your own way. However, if I may, with the life experience I've attained, this is kind of some stuff that I'm seeing, and it may be worth for you to invite that into the space and look at it. And if you then want to disregard it because it doesn't apply to you, then fair.
Does it ever? I mean, you seem quite patient, so I always find it hard whenever you try to impart knowledge into somebody and they don't listen. Like I'm always trying to tell her about loads of stuff, and just don't listen. You know, and it's just frustrating.
Right.
But it's true. I mean,
I'm just laughing. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not calling you a lie. I'm just laughing.
Yeah, don't try. She's trying to dodge my trolling, but I'll catch you at one point. But but it's always there's a fine line because sometimes you're speaking the truth and it's in the right path, and when people don't take that on board, I guess it sometimes me personally, I may then go down the wrong route, and then the message is lost, like you say. But the way that you've described it in planting the seed and then letting it germinate, is that right?
Yeah.
And then maybe come back after seed to see how it's grown. It's probably the best way forward, to be honest.
Yeah.
And sometimes seeds don't grow. That's just the way it is.
And sometimes it's not. It's for you to impart what you feel you have to, but it's for that person to go through their own journey, and it may be that on the steps that they've taken in that journey, it then helps them gain that understanding, and now they can use your words. And it's just that in the timeline, it's not a linear timeline, it's circular, so they just have to come back round to it when they've got to the point that dictates they now have to come back round to it.
It's a spiral, right?
Yeah.
Slowly but steadily.
I mean,
but also the other thing, I think we probably, let me only speak for myself, but there's certain advice that I was given when I was in my late teens or my early 20s, and I did not pay attention to it. And now I look back, I'm like,
yeah, you should have.
Oh, damn, son. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's okay. Like you said, everyone is on their own journey.
Yeah.
And you have to respect that journey. It's their journey.
Yeah.
You know? And so you impart it. Maybe it takes, root. Maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
Maybe it takes root in 20 years from now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just need to be more patient with a sub.
I know.
Wow,
Whatever.
we're making it so personal right there.
It's fine. It's fine.
I had to get one in. Come on. I've been good,
It's
George.
his
I've been good.
thing. It's what he does, you know.
It's good. Listen, we need people who can poke us a little bit, keep
Yeah.
us on our toes.
It does. It definitely
Off
does.
camera, I get it more, by the way. Just,
Yeah.
just be clear. Go on.
He only feels safe in front of the camera.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So anyway, so we were talking about the youth before I started drilling for a bit. So yeah, I mean, I guess you would find it must be rewarding when when you see that the seeds that you've planted start to what's the word? Grow? Is that the right word? Yeah, I was trying to think of a fancy word, but I couldn't think of anything. Flourish. There you go.
Blossom,
Yeah.
prosper.
So obviously in your bio, you talked about some key people that influenced you. So not just we talked before about genres, but you also mentioned some actual people. Talk to us a little bit about key musical figures that have influenced you along the way. I've got them here if you can't remember.
No, I think I know most of them anyway. First and foremost, I was just thinking what order to do them in. I'm going to talk about J Dilla.
Yeah. You had
John Coltrane, J Dilla, Tom Waits, Nina Simone, and Georgianne Muldrow.
This is how I know that you're not a music head or a producer head, because when he said J Dilla,
Go on.
for me it was like quiet, and then you were like, yeah, because you've also
No, because you know why? Okay, all right. I will let you to a little secret. You ain't expose me on thingy for. Listen,
it's true,
all right, listen.
you know.
One time, all right, let me be honest. Full transparency, yeah.
Yeah.
I only found out who J Dilla was one time when I did another podcast, and the lady mentioned J Dilla. Yeah, shout out to Anna Bones, and I was like, yeah, I'm thinking, who the hell is that? Yeah. Then obviously she explained all his influence and all that sort of stuff. Then I realized. So yeah, you're right. Oh, okay, yeah, I'm not up to you lot's level
it's
of
not,
thingy.
it's,
Yeah.
it's not a
Not about that,
disparaging
though.
comment.
No.
It was just an observation that I had, because I literally could feel him getting ready to express,
I was like,
and I
yeah,
could get me. I felt myself getting ready to let me hear about
All right, okay, no, you know what? No,
And then-
let's put J Dilla then.
And then you weren't in that zone. You were just like, okay, organizational.
He's
head.
quiet.
Yeah.
Let me bring him back.
No, because I wanted to talk about somebody else, but let's
Yeah,
talk
no,
about J
fair.
Dilla. Let's talk about J
I mean,
Dilla.
I think, okay, J Dilla.
He's
There's a
quite
book
important.
out. Yeah, incredibly important. Come out a book the last 2 years, I think. Dilla Time, worth checking out.
Okay.
And yeah, so what Dilla did, he took a machine that had certain functions, and I don't think most of us don't think that the creator of these machines, these drum machines, these samplers, really thought of these functions to be used in the manner in which he used them. But what he did is that he time, right? So William Burroughs spoke of time being a human invention and a human affliction. And so J Dilla found a way to manipulate time as nobody had ever done before in the context of music. So Questlove talks about the fact that he had to relearn drumming after he heard Dilla.
Oh damn! Imagine that.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Because he'll put this type of swing on that hi-hat. He'll have to kick maybe perfectly on time, but a very odd kind of pattern. And then he'll have to snare. And it's minimal, but you can hear it or you can feel it.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, more than you can hear it. Put it a little bit early than what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And the push and pull between those elements. And
Yeah.
then you put the piano chords in it, and they are maybe a little bit early. And then the bass line is a little bit late.
Oh, it's
And all of
changed
that,
games, isn't it?
right?
Yeah.
Because there's certainly I like to think of it as a haze that exists in music nowadays that didn't exist before in the same manner. People played around with these concepts, but they weren't able to do it the way that he did it. And so, yeah, I mean, modern pop music, modern hip hop, certainly. Like you think of drill, like with some of those hi-hat patterns.
Yeah.
Without that wouldn't be.
So he's kind of he's probably everybody's production guru, I guess, because he's the one that kind of one of them that set the patterns.
Yes.
Who else have you got on that list then?
John Coltrane.
And talk about old Johnny boy, JC. How did he?
Well, funnily enough, in I think it's in the Bay Area, they've got the Church of the Saint of John Coltrane.
No way.
Yes.
Oh wow,
Because he was
Was
an
that
incredibly
a restaurant,
spiritual
sorry?
man.
An actual church?
It's an actual church.
Crikey.
did not know that.
Yeah. He was an incredibly spiritual man,
I didn't know.
and
Wow.
he built. He went so deep into the music theory, and he found a way to connect music theory into spirituality in a way that very few people have done. Certainly in the last few hundred years. I think if you go way back,
Mm.
right? If we're talking about, the talking drum,
Yeah.
that's a spiritual thing, right?
Mm.
You look at some of the Eastern and Western philosophers who were into music and how they connected it into spirituality. So, and then of course we can talk about music that's strictly in the kind of spiritual or
Yeah.
religious realm.
Yeah.
But outside of that, he connected harmony, musical harmony, into spirituality, and what he achieved through that was just incredible. I personally, and I say this as a hip hop head, right? We've discussed that,
Yeah.
but I would say that "A Love Supreme" is the greatest piece of music ever to be recorded.
It's a bold statement, that.
Well, if you think about it, it's a suite and 4 movements.
Yeah.
And "A Love Supreme" is a terminology for the Most High.
Yeah.
And so the last the last movement of the suite is called Psalms.
Mm.
And it's actually a psalm. John Coltrane had written a psalm. And if you buy the album, you can find, or you can look it up online.
Mm.
And he then transcribed that psalm,
What?
those words, into music on a
Oh,
saxophone.
Damn.
Wow.
Right?
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. My head, like, I can't understand how you did that. Like, the concept of it. It's out of this world, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then on that note, let's slide into, that part where I give a little quick fire round.
Yeah.
We haven't got what we call it.
Oh, we still don't have a name for it. It's fine.
Basically, so I'm gonna
Okay,
I'm gonna give you-
straight now, yeah.
yeah, I've got
Yeah,
it.
ready
I'm gonna give you a couple of people that you've mentioned and ask some questions. You need to answer. It's easy. So the first one is, I'll switch it up this time. Sing with, tour with, chill with. So these are 3 artists that you have mentioned had some influence on you.
Yeah.
Now we want you to pick which one you'd like to sing with, chill with, tour with. Yeah, and why?
Okay.
Straightforward.
Uh,
So we got JC over there. Yeah. Yeah. We got J Dilla.
Yeah.
And we got Kendrick Lamar.
All right, so tour with Kendrick,
Okay, cool. How come?
chill with John Coltrane, just because of the wisdom that could come from that, and then sing with whoever got left.
J Dilla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah. Who wouldn't want to rap over a Dilla
But
beat?
that's what we mean. Sing, rap,
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, they're
Give it
perfect.
all.
Yeah,
So,
perfect.
so what are the reasons behind that beyond the obvious that obviously Kendrick's a performer? What would you get out of those? Because you could do it in any order, but why have you picked that particular order to do it in with those people?
So Kendrick, I think he's the greatest artist of his generation.
Bigger than J. Cole, all those guys?
Yeah, I love J. Cole. But there is so our dear brother Rago Zulu Rebel talks about the God MC. And
Yeah.
they're like, Kendrick's got that God flow.
Whoa, Nas, you're going to discard my guy?
Okay, so here's the interesting thing, right? So here's the interesting thing.
Yeah.
Like, if we're talking about me personally, Nas, Wu-Tang, and Public Enemy in some sense can't ever be touched.
Yeah.
Yeah? But I'm looking at his generation. So
Okay,
Kendrick's
with generation. Yeah.
And also, when you look at the work, I love Nas.
Yeah.
But he had a time where he kind of went a different way.
Yeah.
And he didn't, I think, I love you, Nas. But I don't necessarily know if he fully stayed true to his own heart
Okay.
at one stage in his career.
Yeah.
You look at Kendrick, think about that last album.
Yeah.
What rapper has ever done anything like that? Who's gone like, I'm in therapy, I'm looking at my own devils,
Yeah.
and I'm looking at yours.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, totally.
Not to that level of transparency and vulnerability. I don't know any other rapper who's done that.
Okay, it's a fair point. I mean, it's your opinion anyway. But
And you tried to fight him on it.
no, it's called challenge. Yeah.
Oh,
Check
sorry.
And challenge.
Sorry.
You know what that is?
Check and challenge.
But
Just
so, yeah.
check yourself. Is that right? Do you believe that? Yeah, I do. Boom. Okay, I believe you too. That's it.
So yes, to be the supporting artist, and then of course produce some stuff for Kendrick and be on stage pressing those buttons while he's spitting. I mean,
That's why it's getting gaslit.
you asked me why.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah.
I'll give you that one. The next one is it easier? No, we'll see. It's a head-to-head battle based on their music, their voice, whatever you want to call it. Two artists, only one can win. We've got Georgia Ann Muldrow versus Nina Simone.
See, what is this thing? First you got all the mandem, and now you're pitting the two queens.
That's just
against
pure
each
luck, by the way. I didn't. I don't see gender. No, I'm joking. But, that was pure luck. That's pure luck. Pure luck.
I mean, look, if one has to win, Georgia Ann Muldrow is a relatively new artist. She's been out for 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
We all know the way that Nina Simone has affected culture in the long term. Although, interestingly enough, and I just put this as a side note, you know that term woke?
Yeah.
Everyone talking about being
Yeah.
woke. The first person to ever coin that is who?
I don't actually
Georgia Ann Muldrow.
Is it?
know. Oh, really?
Yeah. And so out of that, it grew into something slightly
Yeah,
different
yeah.
than what
Yeah.
she meant, you know, obviously.
Yeah.
But like, she the first one to term that.
Okay.
Whoa. Okay. Wait. So
Oh,
hold on. Are you sticking with Nina because of longevity then?
Just over the overall cultural influence. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a bit unfair because she's just been around longer. That's all. So
Okay,
So
all
is she
right.
better, really?
But
No, I-
may I
how-
interrupt you
please,
briefly?
please.
You told me
Let's tell
that
you.
you hadn't heard of her,
Who?
Georgia.
I did.
No, you
I
didn't.
heard her today.
That's what I'm saying. So
before that.
therefore, she's been around for 15
Why are you
years and
out
she
with me
hasn't
on this
reached
podcast
you
all today?
because it's that
You're
kind of
enjoying it,
day
yeah.
for me.
You're enjoying
It's
it,
kind of
No,
vibe.
but
No, I hadn't heard it.
you
When I
know,
listened to her, she's up there.
Yeah, I think Georgia Ann Muldrow is definitely up there as far as, especially again, modern artists. I mean, she's been. I don't think she was ended up on the album, but like Kendrick invited her into the studio to kind of help with some inspirational.
Yeah.
She's incredible,
No,
and
she
the
was.
way she's shifted things. Like again, we're talking beat makers. She's clearly hugely influenced by Dilla.
Yeah.
But she also got her own type of funk, and then she's a jazz singer on top of it, and then she can spit, and then it's just And her first album, the first track, if you ever get a chance, I forget the name right now. Of course, Water. I think it's called Water. 5 minutes, just like jazz, like straight up jazz,
Yeah.
with her just singing about New Orleans and the Hurricane Katrina
Oh,
thing,
wow.
but then relating that back to actually the buddies that jumped off the ships 400-500
Oh,
years
damn.
ago. And it's
It's deep.
from that moment I was sold on this
Yeah, no.
artist. Speaking of truth, right? Being real and not caring what anybody thinks.
Yeah, no,
or
that's
says.
the way forward. What I've learned is that I'm not going to talk to you about anything secretly before a podcast because you just expose me. Anyway, that's
So
fine.
you haven't learned not to troll me. You've just learned to not give me trolling ammunition
Yeah.
against you.
First rule of trolling: don't be trolled. Anyway,
Good
let's
luck with that.
move. Let's move on to your social dilemma.
Yes.
Oh,
so I have a
gosh,
social
okay.
dilemma for you now.
Okay.
And it's centered around, the spirituality side of things and growth and journeys and whatnot. And so let's say now, you say you go to a church. It doesn't have to be a church. It doesn't have to be Christianity. But say now,
A temple.
whatever your religious proclivities are, you consistently go to whichever temple it is you worship at, and obviously each temple has a leader. And say now, you've been there for a number of years. It's a community. It's a family. And over that time, there begin to be accusations laid against the leader, the head, the person who's supposed to help people with their journey and support them. Then at some point, you see an altercation between, let's say if the leader is married or has a significant other or whatnot, you see an altercation between their significant other and a member of the congregation. And then subsequently, the stories or the nitty gritty of whatever's been going on comes out. My question to you is, firstly, how do you deal with that in terms of, is that going to be a place you continue to go to? Will you remove yourself from that community? How will you personally respond to it? And then how do you feel those things should be handled or could be handled?
Lord, you're taking me deep.
Yeah, I like to check and challenge.
Yeah, chicken challenge, man.
So first of all, how would I deal with it? As far as me being able to continue going to a place like that for worship or presence with God, first and foremost, let me clarify that temples, churches, synagogues, mosques, etc. are beautiful places. But the first temple for you to connect to God is your physical body,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So I that's why I'm always drawn more to the mystic side of any kind of religious paths, because within that there's Richard Raw, a Franciscan monk, spoke recently about the idea that the trouble with religion is that then it becomes a man-made thing, and so then you are following man-made rules to actually connect to something that doesn't work under the same rules.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's always important to remember that.
Yes.
And that's not to say one shouldn't be part of a religion or a denomination, but most important is your personal connection
Okay.
to the Most High. So how would I deal with it? First of all, it's depending on what we're talking about, what actually occurred.
Yeah.
There can be accusations of things that might not be ideal,
Yeah.
but they may not necessarily affect too deeply
Okay.
the situation
Yeah.
as far as the worship is concerned.
Yeah.
Other things, there needs to be an outing, so to speak,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
let's keep real. Like,
Retribution.
again and again, you can come across, people in authority positions
Yeah.
outside of religion too, but within
Yes.
religion, who will abuse those powers.
Yeah.
And depending on the severity of that, that needs to be dealt with. That is not okay.
Yeah.
Toxic spirituality it doesn't matter that it's spiritual, it's still toxic.
Yeah.
And if you're abusing your power, then you shouldn't be having that power. So yeah, it really depends on the situation. I don't think there is a black and white answer to that question for me. Except you want to give a specific kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like if we're talking about they're taking all the money, right?
Yeah.
They keep going, oh, we need money so we can, help out the poor or whatever.
Yeah.
And actually you find out, well, they bought themselves
419.
a merc with it or whatever. Okay, cool. Or, if again and again you hear how people of power within religions have abused their power in a sense of, around the sense of sexuality.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
And that needs to be outed there and then and dealt with. But there's also things that I think, and again, how much is the veracity and the truth of it? The verity of the situation. How much do I personally know that this is true?
Let's say you know it to be true.
Well, then depending on the severity of it, it needs to be dealt with, or it may be okay to be, you know what, I may not. And this is the thing. That's why I talked about mysticism. So I do go to worship, right? I am part of what we could call a congregation.
Yeah.
But I am always a little bit on the outer rim, outer circle of that, because I see what happens with us humans when we get into big groups.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
No. Fair point.
Depending on the severity of it, I might have to leave. I might have to confront it. Or I may just have to stay on the outer circles and understand, okay, it's not ideal, but it doesn't actually conflict with my presence of worship.
Okay.
Space.
That's a tough one, that one.
Yeah, I like to try and make them tough. If they're easy, then there's no discussion based around it,
Right.
I think I'll bounce. I think I'll leave.
Yeah.
I'll just, like you say, the first place of worship is your body, really.
Yes.
So just either find another one,
Yes.
or because sometimes people get caught up in the familiarity of one particular place that they like going to, and they like the people there, and they like.
Well, you build relationships with.
But ultimately, that's a byproduct. That's not what you're really there for,
Yeah.
in my opinion. Anyway, personally, you're there to worship first,
Mhm.
and then the other thing is just nice, kind of
Yeah.
release. So I'd bounce.
Yeah, it depends on the. I think there is an important thought around the spiritual community.
Yeah.
But yes, I hear you, and yeah, that's why I said severity.
Yeah.
Right? If it's
Yeah.
something relatively small, I might not bounce, but otherwise, yeah, I hear
Yeah.
you 100%.
And I think it's like there's a difference if there are all these like mini allegations that
Yeah.
keep coming. For me, it's like, okay, well, I might, ignore the first 2, 3,
Yeah.
but if it continues, then it's like, okay, whether or not there's enough merit or
Yeah.
whether I know the truth enough about these, there's a reason that so many are
Yeah.
coming, and that makes me uncomfortable.
There's
so
no
I'd
smoke
have to,
without fire.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then also, there's this understanding in psychology that positions of power and authority tend to why can't I think of the word now?
Is it
They
corrupt?
tend to not even corrupt. They tend to entice. They tend to be. It's not entice the word that I want to use, but basically, narcissistic personalities tend to go for
Yeah.
positions of authority, whether it be religious figures, police,
Yeah.
I was just gonna
school
say, look at the
teachers.
police, right?
If you have a position of authority, it tends to
They crave that sort of position.
yeah. It tends to. Oh, what's the word? It's not magnet. Attract.
Attract.
Yes, attract a narcissistic personality type.
Interesting.
For sure.
All right. Well, I feel a bit down about that now. So let's brighten everybody up with next track.
All right.
Found a piece for us. What's this one called?
This one's called "Stick to the Plan."
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, you'll hear, but it's essentially, God created us all and designed us all individually, and so there's a plan for each of us individually, and so being part of a spiritual community is a beautiful thing, but most important is your personal relationship. And I guess it kind of looks at that.
Oh, right, that perfectly
I
ties
like-
into what we
yeah,
just said.
I love
I was like, we planned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
What did you just say? You said the plan of life, yeah? Say that again?
Plan of life.
What is that?
God's plan.
That's cute. He's got a plan for it. Yeah.
Given a plan for all of us. So just stick to the plan, man. Have faith, give praise, keep it moving, and just stick to the plan, man. Back in the day, they used to call me clouds, getting high to search for the most high. I guess I keep talking about God, cause I'm trying to figure out what it is that we got. Love, passion, faith, but also understandings that are misplaced. I give thanks for your daily grace. Music is the way that I give praise. I hope you know, I hope you understand. I'm just trying to stick to the plan. I hope you know, I hope you understand. I'm just trying to stick to the plan. I'm just trying to stick to the plan. Stick to the plan. I'm just trying to stick to the plan. Stick to the plan. Whose plan? God's plan. Whose plan? God's plan. Whose plan? God's plan. Whose plan? Whose plan? God's plan. Whose plan? God's plan. Whose plan? God's plan. Whose plan? God's plan. Whose plan? Whose plan? God's plan.
What you say in the bed?
Blessing.
What you say in the bed when I'm flying? What you say?
I find the rest of it on Spotify before I enter that, but we'll talk about that.
That might be my favourite of the two, you know.
That
Give thanks.
was
Oh.
uplifting, man. I was on that.
Give thanks.
Ah,
Oof.
no. I love the production. I love the vocals in the background. Just
Yeah, that was.
yeah. The journey of the production in that track alone, just
We give
ooh,
thanks.
That was unique, man. That was unique.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah, no. Very there, you know.
Bless you.
Yes.
Yeah.
We give thanks. We give thanks.
Mm.
Okay,
All
so,
praises due to the Most High. I wouldn't be able to do it without him.
amen to that, brother.
Amen.
So, obviously, you kind of jumped in a little bit and told people. So, normally we'd try to get you to impart some wisdom, what your message is for music. But we'll do it the other way around. Where can people find your beautiful work?
So, logo right there.
Yeah.
Give thanks to my sister for helping me with creating it. Yahnw, YAHNW.
Okay.
Maybe we can break that down in a minute. But so at Yahnw Music on Instagram,
Okay.
on YouTube, and then on Spotify it's just Yahnw.
We'll put it all in there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bio anyway.
yeah.
So you talked about Yahnw. So there's a meaning behind it. It's not just saying
No,
What is it?
but it relates to that.
Really?
So NW. The reason I went with NW rather than it took a long time, and I would suggest that the Holy Spirit ultimately gave me the name, which is why I won't talk about my past names until I get told by the Holy Spirit
You
that
talk
it
about
is
it.
time to talk.
Mm.
NW because it relates to the now
Yeah.
right here, but also relates to knowing,
Okay.
to know. And Yah is the first three letters of the name Yahweh.
Yeah.
It directly links into what in Rasta we call Jah,
Yeah.
which is God.
Yeah.
So the idea being that I talked about presence.
Yeah.
You can only, like the past exists in your mind with memories and the future exists in your mind as aspirations and goals, but all that really truly exists is the now, presence in the now. And if in the presence of the now, through meditation, contemplation and prayer, you connect to the Most High,
Yeah.
and Yah knows all,
Oof. Wow.
then through that, you know.
Boy, my head is spinning right now. Oh, that's wild, man. That's like some mathematical equation. But it's deep though, but it all makes sense.
Oh, listen, this one, yeah. Sorry, I don't even. This one.
This one,
Rude.
I am sometimes, but I'm sorry.
we're family, man. Yeah, we can be
But-
rude and family.
At least you get an apology.
Yahnw mentioned at the beginning that I did vocals on his one of his albums, and when I went to go and record that album, on the walls in the room was all these because it was related to the constellations, right?
Yes, so that's actually the project before that.
Oh, am I
but
mixing two
so
things
that was for
now?
my
Oh, of
master's
course.
project. Yes.
Yes.
And so constellations, all those
Yes.
yes. Go on.
Yeah.
Go on.
So that album, he literally had all this research and information, and it looked like mathematical genius
Yeah.
in terms of all the constellations and
Crazy.
It was just
Because I took that John Coltrane system of, or not hit. I didn't take a system, but I went into that thought process of connecting music theory
Yeah.
into the cosmic
Yeah.
consciousness,
Yeah.
Christ consciousness into the spiritual, and connect all of that.
Okay.
And for that, mathematical equations for sure. I had somebody else show up, and you know what they said to me? They were like, "Have you seen that movie, A Beautiful Mind?"
Yeah.
It's like, you have a beautiful mind, but please don't go down that same path and end up in the asylum. You know what I'm saying? But I got close a couple of times.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, because I locked myself in this room for about 2.5 months.
Yeah. It's your creative process.
I got 89% for it, so
Well, it's worth it.
that and all right.
mate.
All right. So now you've explained the name, which is, I love that, by the way. That's great. Final word is, I guess, if you were to, what would you want people to take from your music, or feel at least, or do you have a message for people out there, whether that be about your music or about their own music?
To be an inspiration, and to be able to reach and touch people, and through that touching impart wisdom, joy, peace, and above all, a love supreme.
Nice.
Love it.
Yeah, Love Supreme. Oh, perfect. Just referencing another thing. That was nice. Okay, on that note, I've been Mike. You've
I've
been,
been Asabi Hawa.
and we've had, get it right this time.
Yahnw.
You don't know.